Hey, we are back. Kristyna, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
Oh, I have to say, I have had an amazing 7 days since we last spoke. Um, it has just been a whirlwind of people coming up to me, excited about what you showed last week, and excited for us to continue the conversation today. Have you had the same experience, or are these people that are just like, oh, Kristyna's awesome, and they know that, and it's no big deal? What has your life been like in those last 7 days?
I have to swat away the paparazzi these days, Chris. I'll be real with you. Being on your blog it's changed my life. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, people are really excited about the topic, and I've loved the response from the community. I think it's a topic that we're all really passionate about, and we're all realizing is about to be a really big part of our lives. So I think everybody's really excited to get in there and understand the intricacies of how did you get within Power BI or within data in general.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've been talking about for like 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago was the first time I had a conversation about what we could, or more accurately, could not do. And so to now have the power bestowed upon us, it like um what was that the glow? There was an old like 80s kung fu movie where like this guy from Harlem was doing kung fu and he got the glow or something like that. Where he was empowered. It was
All
kind
I
of
can think
cheesy.
of is Kung Fu Panda. I'm so sorry.
Okay, all right, all right. I'm dating myself. I know I am. But it was amazing. Like he got the power of like kung fu or whatever it was, and he turned like golden and stuff. But I feel like that is where we're at, right? And like you're giving us that power, like from your hands to ours. So very excited about this stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's going to be a blast to get into
Yeah,
part two
yeah.
and to really look at all right, how do we do it now?
Good point. And for those of you joining us, I want to say shout outs to all the admins. They are out there. They're in the chat. They're helping us govern and control the stuff. We do have a few rules. I'm just going to quick touch base on. We are following the guy in the cube rules, or the Matthew Roche rules that he's published. Rule 1, please prefix any questions you have with the queue so we can answer them. We are here. Well, I do want to learn from Kristyna how this stuff works, so I want to see that. But we really do want to answer your questions. So please post those questions in the chat. Preface it with the Q so I can get into my little so I could track those and stuff. That just makes things easier. And then uh, don't be a doof. Don't be a jerk. Please don't go out spamming or repeating questions or do anything like that. You'll find yourself your question will get removed from the queue, and the admins, moderators, the people that they'll gear by their names who are posting in the chat, they'll prevent you from posting again. So we don't want that to happen because we're a good crew, we're good people. So um, yeah, so let's just not, okay. Let's not do any of that stuff. But um, all right, awesome. Hey, shout outs to Kevin Arnold in the chat. Kevin, good to see you. I know Kevin and I talked last Friday and again later about how great this conversation was. So I know we're excited to get this back up. And I know Mark and James had to jet, so they're heading out. But I do see Kevin Rail and Dan and Donald and Stina and Power Egg and David Johnson over on in Minnesota, the doofus in Minnesota. Oh, Christian is here as well. Hey guys, welcome everyone. We are so excited for you to be here. Can you post in chat? Have you tried it? Like, like we saw Christina do it yesterday. We
Yeah,
saw like she was having some issues. Like PPU didn't work. Does PPU work, Christina?
it does. It does. I got it. It works now. I don't know what it was doing. Maybe Microsoft was like, you shouldn't be doing this the night before, even though we're just gonna shut that off. But it works now. So
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. All right. So in the chat, I want to know thumbs up or thumbs down or yes or no, or have you tried it or not, so that we can kind of like judge like how much is this working, how or not, right? Really would love to see that, so that we understand how much this is helping. Hopefully, this is helping everyone, right? Oh, there's Donald. He's been trying everything. Oh, attaboy, Donald. You the man. Oh, and it's good to see everyone. Look at this. Marcos is coming from Brazil. We're intercontinental. This is exciting. You, your message is getting out to the entire globe.
Not
Only
just me.
here.
This
Only here,
is
right?
long time in the waiting. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And we've got Nashville and we've got Tampa. Oh boy, lots of people coming in from all over the place. Awesome. Okay, well, enough of this going back and forth. Let's dive into it. Kristyna, I'm hoping one of the comments I got was you had some amazing memes last week. Are we going to see some more memes this week?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Oh,
definitely.
Good.
Love me some memes.
All right. Then let's head over to it. I understand you have a couple slides to level set us again, and let's head over to it.
I think we have to do a little cheers though, Chris. If I've learned anything from you, we got to start off with a cheers.
You're right. That is spot on. Boy. Oh, we're going to need you always joining in, keeping me on track, keeping me honest. This is our Power BI lunch hour. We are all here to learn, but it is our lunch hour. We're taking a break from our day-to-day job to learn more about the stuff. So grab your cup, grab your beverage, and let's get ready for the joint unified sip before we get into it. All right, and let's go. All right, good deal. Thank you, Kristyna.
No problem.
I need someone to like always stay on top of me and like, this is how this needs to happen. Goes.
That's what friends are for, Chris.
Well, I appreciate that so much.
All right, guys. Part 2. Are you ready, Chris? Are you ready?
I am so ready. Let's dive into it.
All right. So I know we had talked about last time. I got tons of people saying that they absolutely love this get station graphic. So I just wanted to pull it up again from last session. For those of you who might have missed the last one and are just tuning in, don't worry. You don't have to watch the first one to enjoy this one. But obviously there's a lot of context in the last one. So feel free to just loop back to that after today. But just wanted to show you guys this again. We got our get station. We're basically going from our main branch and we're checking things out into new branches. We're doing all of our changes. We're packaging that up in a stage, and then we're pulling that into a commit. And then today, what we're really going to talk about is getting from this commit bucket into a merge situation through a pull request. So I just wanted to show this to you guys again. If you have questions on this, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to answer any questions as far as like what the different nuances are. This is a really simplified version of get. Some models you see look like circuitry, but we're going to keep it simple today. So,
and I, as someone who comes from the world where, like all of the lion majority of my line share of my development was pre-Git, and now Git came in as soon as I moved into like architecture and design. So now this is very helpful for me. Like, oh, now I'm getting Git. And so I think this is the type of image that's very helpful for people who aren't like a hardcore engineer, right? Like this helps out a lot, right?
Yeah. And Chris, I think you and I come from similar backgrounds as far as we didn't go to school for Git, so
right.
Anything we can do to help ourselves is a huge win. I actually on my mug have another meme for you guys. It's inverted, but it says technology, no place for wimps.
Oh, hang on a second. Here we gotta yeah, let me let him zoom in.
Yeah.
There you go.
No place for wimps. So I think that applies for today.
Yeah, that is straight up fire there. As the kids say, I believe. I don't know.
You nailed it, Chris. You nailed it. But yeah, so let's get into pull requests, right? Since that's the main topic I wanted to dive in today. Do I really need PRs, right? So PR, shorthand for pull request. At your request, I have added a lot of memes. Well, I would have done it anyway, but uh, basically, pull request is your final approval round. So it should be something that other people are reviewing and other people are looking at. Hence the meme, right? You shouldn't be merging your own pull requests. Typically, you have somebody on your team who is reviewing your code and at least doing a peer review with you to make sure that whatever you're merging in matches the standards, matches best practice, right? So um, I would not follow the advice of this meme.
Yeah.
Oh, Christian, I love it.
Oh, well, I yes, we do. We all need to get for dummies course, right? That's a thing.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a little etiquette about pull requests. If other people are looking at them, Chris, you know, you don't want to be making anything too complicated that somebody won't understand. So when you're making code, you should be doing this anyway, but pull requests help you remember that somebody other than yourself will inevitably look at this code in the future. That future might be a week from now, it might be tomorrow, or it might be 10 years from now. So make sure that your code uses clear variables and naming conventions. Also, something we're going to talk about a lot today is committing often and writing clear commit messages, as well as putting some notes in there to help future you and current reviewers. So I just put this little sad bear up there because I think that he exemplifies what can happen pretty often, which is if you save your commit until the end of the week and you have a week's worth of code for somebody to review, nobody's going to review it, or it's going to take an extra long time to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, could you go back?
Yeah.
This is something, if you're like a solo practitioner and you're just getting into working with Git and managing content, and even the previous meme of like, hey, I checked in and approved my own code. It is a real good practice to run through in situations and review and just even ask yourself, does this code make sense? Would someone else understand it? I did a video once about oh my gosh, where's all my little guys? I did a video once about rubber duck debugging, where you explain to a rubber duck your code, and if as you're trying to explain it to the rubber duck, like, oh, you can often find mistakes, but you can also find that, you know what, my code is really unreadable, or I can't make heads or tails of it. Maybe I need to do something to fix this. And please, for your future self, and I know we often say, screw that guy. Chris from 2 weeks now is a jerk. I hate that guy. I'm going to screw over Chris from 2 weeks from now. But that Chris from 2 weeks from now is going to have to just deal with this crappy code.
No,
I implore you, please think of yourself 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now. Adjust your code, write it so it's understandable. Take just a little time, right? Like sometimes it's just like the pull request in and of itself can be a call to action for yourself to like, hey, I should adjust this, right? Kristyna, have you ever run into that?
Oh yeah, 100%. All the time. I'll look at it and be like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I was just testing this thing out. It works, but it's not pretty. I should go back and make it something usable, make it understandable. I find that especially with DAX.
Yeah.
It's it works, but I don't remember why. Why
Yeah.
does it work or what I was trying to do? So
Yeah,
definitely
and
helps.
I worked with one guy who had been in his job for like 7 years, and he was great at what he did, but he had found himself trapped as a senior engineer, and he
Yes.
could not go or do anything else because he was the only one who knew how to work and manage his code, and so he became a slave to his own code because of that.
And you
And
can't even take vacation when that happens, Chris. I mean, you got to
that's
think
right.
about your whole self, right? Sure, it's job security, but it's more like job prison. Like you're stuck.
Oh my God, that's exactly right. It's job prison. Holy cow! I'm just gonna shut up and be quiet. You've got this.
No, Chris, I need this. I need the back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Like this moron will prompt you for your genius. Not a problem.
Hey, that's a whole job now, Chris, right? AI prompter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're halfway there. Yeah.
All right. Oh, all right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Keep.
don't be sorry. I'll go to the next one. So, PR etiquette is important. However, I would say that if you have done what I went through last week about PBIP files, and you've seen the JSON that comes out of it, um, you might be thinking this. I don't know what JSON is, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask because this is what your code looks like. So we'll go into that today. I'm going to go through a couple of options that I think will work in a pull request situation with Power BI. Because right now there's not a great way to visualize the changes, right? We can see the code compare, we can see the diffs, but they're all in JSON. So if you don't speak JSON, you're going to be lost. So I'll show you guys some of that today as well, which I think will be helpful. With that in mind, I want you guys to not be afraid to use the Power BI service. In my opinion, DevOps isn't quite the tool we're looking for. I almost put in some other Star Wars memes, but I figured we'll stick with the Force. Effectively, Power BI pipelines can offer us a better way to review visual changes to a report, and we can use JSON as a way to narrow down where those changes might be. It's going to take practice, right? There's no get out of jail free card here. You're going to have to know. Essentially, you're going to have to visit Dagobah, right, and do the little training with Yoda and understand what JSON is enough to use it to help pinpoint these changes. But well, I'll show you guys a way that I've seen work well and that I would recommend, at least until they're able to change DevOps to show you visual changes or highlight those for us. But, yeah.
Awesome. Big fan. I've got my helmet somewhere here.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad, Kevin, you agree too with that Power BI pipeline. It's going to come in handy. We just haven't touched on it yet in part 1. This is part 2, so we're going to touch on it.
I think we're going to get rid of Power BI pipelines.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, let's keep going.
We can't get rid of these cookies they're giving us. You know, we have to keep going. But
well, hang on. Well, okay, keep going.
All right, this is, I think, my last slide. So, or pretty close. But we're also going to go into reverting changes. This was a question I got in after our session last week. So the secret sauce of Get, I think, is revert. So we'll basically be able to clear certain commits. This is why committing often is really important. Somebody had asked me, how do I only deploy a certain section of code? The way to do that is to make sure you have a lot of small commits. That's really easy to pick out the pieces you actually want to merge, or merge it all if you need to, or revert certain parts. So I'll show it in DevOps as well. I just wanted to do a little call out for all our folks who have been using it for a long time. There are a lot more options for undoing changes in Get, but for what we're doing with Power BI, what we're doing with DevOps, and especially for intro level, we're going to stick with the one that's tried and true, the one that has a GUI in front of it. So just wanted to call that out. If you're in the comments going, hey, I know Get really well, and I can tell you 6 different, commands that do this. I know, but those ones are pretty complicated. So we're going to stick with these.
Well, and hang on. Before we go too much further, we have a real good question from Adam Ziegel. Yeah. It's coming in from LinkedIn. Adam wants to know, like, what team size do you recommend to moving to pull requests and CI/CD process? When do you think that's appropriate?
I think as soon as you have more than one person working on the same report. So in Power BI especially, or if they have multiple reports off the same data set. But I think, yeah, Kevin makes a good point here. Even a team of one can benefit. But I would say that you should move as soon as you have more than one person working on a report. I think at that point it becomes critical.
Yeah, I think I would agree. It's kind of either more than one person, or uh, you have an environment where uptime, availability, and control over what goes on is very important. So even if you're a shop of one and you're one guy trying to manage, because, and I've seen it, right? Like there are some guys out there that, it's one person sitting in a chair and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of reports that are up and running and managing,
Yeah.
and they're going out and they're trying to make all these little changes and updates. And when something goes wrong, they have to do reverts and whatnot. Even in that type of a situation, it can be really helpful in managing all this stuff, right?
No, 100%. And I think with that, something that I run into a lot just by myself is I'll forget why I change things. So somebody would be like, "Who approved that change?" Well, if it's just you, then it's hard to sometimes to go back through all the Teams messages and go through all of the email chains and figure out who approved it and did it go through testing or did I just push it through because we were meeting a deadline? Get messages can help you a lot with that, and pull requests in general. You can put that context in there. So when you look back through your list of changes and you go, "Oh, I made this change on this day. Oh, and in the comments it tells me we had to rush this hot fix because XYZ customer was mad." That's huge, right? To be able to show a history of changes.
Yeah, and Kevin's comments on here, like, if you're only doing it every few months,
Yeah.
coming back in and like, what the heck did I do? How did I do it? By doing pull requests and keeping those things to track can really help you tie out to what you've done. And if you integrate the work with DevOps, you can actually connect it to the actual requests and the tasks. So when someone asks for something and you get that email like, "Hey, Kristyna, can you please do XYZ?" You can go and you can create a DevOps task for it. And then when you do your pull request, you can put that link to that. You can connect it right to that DevOps item, so that it's really easy for you to trace back and say, yeah, yes, for this on Tuesday. I deployed it on Wednesday and it's been in production ever since then. Right.
Exactly, exactly. So I think one of the things that I've also seen is, have you ever come across a company with the retention policies
Yeah.
where it's like your email will automatically get completely deleted in 60 days? You're like, well, that's great because we do quarterly reviews. So I have no idea what happened 90 days ago to lead to what's coming now.
Yep.
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 So
No,
I'm a
and
big
this,
fan of
yeah,
something like
I
that.
agree. And I think Power Ag has two questions here that I think actually are really good. And I'm going to ask them now, but I want us to under, allow for you to say, I want to cover that in the demo. Okay. Otherwise, we could just
Yeah.
talk about it. His first question is, when you move data sets between workspaces using Git integration or in a deployment pipeline, how do you make sure the data connection to the source stays in place? Um, and then his second question is, um, could it make sense for you to move data sets between workspace yourself, like manually move them, or without the pipelines, just with your Git integrations?
Yeah. No, these are great questions, and I can cover them in the demo.
All right.
Yeah, so let's do it. But before I forget the question, I'll also highlight, just at a high level for you guys. Um, when it comes to Power BI deployment pipelines, I think we went through it last week, but there are some limitations. So
Some.
yeah, so, quite a few. If you're doing anything other than a PBIX file, right, where you have a report and you have a data set, anything else does not work through these pipelines. So if I have a Power BI report and it has a paginated report visual, I cannot tell it which workspace to grab that paginated report visual from. I can also not move a paginated report through the pipeline. So keep that in mind. But you can move the data sets and you can move the reports. So I can show you guys also, you can set up rules for pipeline movement that will change the data source connections if you have it parameterized. So we can look at that today too. But
What?
I know, exciting, right? You can always do things manually too, but when you have a tool like this that's able to show you the diffs, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, no problem. And so I would recommend using it where you can, because it is really nice to have that visibility.
And can you show us the diff and actually show us the difference between the two?
Yeah, so we're actually going to push this to test.
Okay.
Because I want you guys to see this process and how difficult it is. So you select
Difficult.
exactly. Should I put more sarcasm on the tone? We need like a little asterisk to hold up sarcasm.
Oh my gosh.
But I'll deploy that to test. This is pretty fun. I can add a note here, right? So I can say like peer reviewed by Chris, approved for test. So when I do this, a couple things are going to happen. I'll hit deploy. It's going to move to my test
what Chris's
workspace.
do you know with the KRIS?
Oh my gosh. I'm
It's
just
all right.
like, I'm just projecting my spelling issues of Kristyna onto you. I think I was thinking of Kratos, you know, but
well, or your name, and then I like totally
yeah. I almost typed in my name. Like
open mouth, insert foot.
It's too late now.
Who do you know with a K on a Kristyna?
It's on YouTube forever, Chris. So.
Oh, son of a...
Just kidding. But it's also in our workspace forever. So isn't that fun? If I want to, I can actually come in here. And first of all, I mean, you see that this moved over really easily, right? So I've got my report. It has a couple things listed in here, like data flows, data marts. These things are in data flows is not in preview, but data marts are in preview. You can see it looks like it should expand further. So they've got it where it's got dashboards in here too, but there's no paginator reports. There's, you know, nothing to that effect. So just keep that in mind. But all right. So if I come in here, I should be able to go to my workspace now and I should see it. I want to call out a couple of things when we go to it. First of all, if I go into the report, just clicking on it, it will have 0 data in it. So when you use the pipelines, keep in mind you're going to have to refresh. The reason is I think behind the scenes what it's doing is it's using those PBIT files. So if you've ever used a template file, it doesn't contain any data in it. So when it moves, it needs a refresh. So just something to keep in mind. I will say if you change the report, so if all I did was make a change to the report, and I'll show you guys in a second, and no changes to the actual data set, you don't need to refresh the data again. It will just push those changes to the report. So let's go back.
And you can do selective deployments, right?
Yes.
So you can choose what goes and doesn't go. And now one thing I've had a question on, it's not in here. Let's say I'm just adding measures into my model. Does it still require a full refresh?
Yeah, unfortunately it does if you use this method.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason being that it is still technically part of the model.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not part of the visual layer, unfortunately.
All right, so that speaks to a CI/CD pipeline then. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Which I don't have fully built out yet, so I can't quite show you guys that one. I've done it before with XMLA, where you can refresh. In the XMLA, there are more refresh options, and one of them is to refresh the model without refreshing the data. So you can do it that way. There are also APIs that will do the same thing. So if it's kind of like a one-off hot fix kind of thing, you could do that, but it does go entirely around this process. So
it will also break this process where you won't be able to continue to use this process.
Correct.
So FYI, one of the reasons why data pipelines, I just started saying, stop using them, but keep going.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky because
Yeah.
it is really cool. And for most things, it's going to work, right? We got that 80/20 rule. For most things, I think it'll work. It's when we get into things like that where it's like, I just need to add a measure on the fly, or I need to do this, this, and this. And my model is 10 gigabytes large. I don't want to refresh it. Now you got to get into some more complicated solutioning
Yep.
that I think in the future this will incorporate. If it doesn't, it'll die. So I'm hoping that it does. But yeah, so if I come in here, let's say that I want to see what changes have been made, I can go up here to the deployment history, and I can go to all, and it'll show me what's been deployed, how many items got deployed, and if there were any notes.
Does the deployment history ever get truncated? Do you know, Kristyna?
I haven't run into it yet. It just becomes
Okay.
really scrolly. You end up
Okay.
just scrolling through a lot of stuff, but
Becomes really scrolly. I like that. Words of wisdom from Kristyna here. Scrolly. It's just scrolly.
what can I say? You know, I personally, I think this is pretty handy, especially if you have a whole big team using it.
Mm.
What I have not been able to find as a way to get this anywhere other than the Power BI service.
Ah, okay.
So
So you have to
that's
go in here. Hey,
mhm.
Jack's asking, because you brought up Paget reports.
Yeah.
How do you integrate Paget reports in this situation? I apologize for kind of taking you out of your rhythm here,
No,
but
that's fine. So this is gonna sound terrible, and it is, but I've manually done it before, where you publish that paginated into all three workspaces.
okay.
Um, it's not great. If anything, it's actually pretty terrible. Um,
Okay.
but that is the best way to do it, especially since paginated, you can't change the data source between these different steps. So you'd have to manually go in and change the data source anyway. Um, if you've worked with paginated, you know what I'm talking about, where you've got the data source, and then you've also got your data. I think it's a data source and then a data set within the
Hmm.
paginated report within the RDL, and you can't change the source connection. So
Hmm.
it
So you end
becomes
up having
pretty
to
unusable.
republish.
hmm In
Okay.
that scenario, though, I do still think it makes sense to have a dev test and production workspace,
Hmm.
um, because you still want to be able to, have a space where you can show your peers, or have a space where you can see it in the service yourself in development, somewhere in tests where you're sharing it with one or two people, where you can try things out, and then production that can stay live, right? So I still think the model makes sense, even if we can't use this tool for it yet.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And all right. Okay, cool. Let's keep going.
So let's go ahead and let's make a change, right? Let's see this in action. Let's see what happens when I've got a change. So I've got my demo report ready to go. I'm going to do two changes. I'm going to do one that's just the visual layer, and I'm going to push that commit. And I've got one that's going to be in the data set, so we can see both. So to start off with, let's make sure I'm connected to my branch again. And you'll notice I've just reopened it. The purpose of doing it this way is to show you guys, if you have something connected to a branch in Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio Code, I also use Azure Data Code, Azure Data Studio. Oh gosh, there's so many tools, Chris. But it stays connected to my repo, so it knows
Okay.
which one I'm looking at, which is super helpful. So again, I'm actually going to close this guy real quick and just show you. If I save that, and then if I think if I right click, or what's that? You can explore. I can get to it. Yeah, here we go. So we're going to reveal an error again. Just because then I know for sure the right local repository location. So again, we've got a local copy. We're going to push it up to the cloud. So if I come in here and I open my PBIP from here, And this is where you can see with Json, you don't have to open your Power BI report. You can change it in the code.
What?
I'm not going to do that today because, you know, that's scary. No, I'm just kidding. Because I haven't finished my Json for Dummies class yet. But when that happens, that'll be great. Honestly, I can't wait for them to change that from Json. But
what's that? You can't wait for them. What?
I think that eventually they should change that to use. I think we're not going to get away from Json on the front end, but Timdo is so clean to see the data model.
Yeah,
We'll get there.
I think that is their roadmap, is to go to Timdo on that. But I believe what you said. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure. What you're saying is you can control in your Git and your CI/CD pipelines the URL that your report connects to, because inside the JSON you can map that and make those changes. Am I correct?
I think I know what you're talking about. So if I were to come in here, like let's say what I was mentioning was if I have changes I want to make and somehow I know exactly where in here I want to make the change, you can definitely do it this way. So I think you can even use Tabular Editor to adjust the BIM files, but I just wanted to, maybe I can zoom in.
Oh, I was referring to the report, but yes, you can do the change in here too. Yes.
So the report you can definitely change as well. So we're kind of doing, how I think about it is that what Microsoft has exposed with all of this fancy danciness is the back end that we get to adjust with our GUI here. So for example, I've got this and I hit Control S and I save this PBIP file. I can come in here now and I should be able to see the diffs. Yeah, so it's already showing me that I have modified one of my visuals.
Okay.
To include sales territory group. Now, I can't read JSON fluently, so I would never know exactly where it was that this change had gotten made, unless I were to go back and find the position X and Y, right? So this is where I think it goes really well in conjunction with the Power BI pipelines. But I can at least see something has changed. I can see that it's related to adding a sales territory group in there.
Sure. And I think my question was leading into Adam Ziegel's question from LinkedIn. He's asking, can a pipeline update the data set in a report? Example, as a report goes from dev to UAT and to prod, if the reports and data sets are kept in separate workspaces, right? Is that something you can do?
I believe so. Let me go back here. I'm pretty sure we can set up conditions. So deployment rules here, if we look at this, I can look at my demo report. Now again, this is your content deployed to this stage, which in our case is just test. I only have this demo report in here. You'll notice there's not a report in here. It's just the data set itself. If I click on this, I can add a rule. So I can choose the data source here. So let's say, for example, that I had a different folder or a different server or a different database for my test and dev. This is how you would set up what gets plugged in. So I could choose a different data source. For example, let me see if I can build it out, but hopefully this makes sense. As far as data source rules, you can swap them in and out. If I had it in a different workspace, that's actually a really good question. Let me go ahead and put one in a different workspace.
So before you go through it, it's a little convoluted. Yeah. So go back to your demo, and I'll walk through how it works or doesn't work. So awesome. Let's go a little bit. We'll come back to your live stream. So let's say you've got your data sets in one workspace and you've got your reports in another. As your data set moves up through, it's in dev, it goes to tests, it goes to production via a Power BI pipeline, the reports that you have, as you deploy them up, they will automatically switch, right? As long as you have a pipeline for your data sets and a pipeline for your reports, they will move in sync. So when you create a report that's connected to dev, it'll move to UAT. When it moves to UAT, it'll move to the UAT data set. Then when the report moves to production, it'll automatically move to production. You have to have pipelines for both your data sets and your reports for that to work. But yes, you can do that. What the other alternative is, let's say you're not the team that manages the enterprise data model, right? That data model exists, and it's the production data model that's out there. You can have a report that you build in test going against that production data model, that you would then deploy that up into or dev, it's point to production, test, it's point to production, and then in production, it's point to production. So you can use a pipeline to keep it all on static on one, or you can have a pipeline to keep it along with the various environments that you have. Big challenge that you have here is you cannot do both, and you can't switch once you establish it. So if you have a report that's published, either always pointing to prod or having grown up, and you need to make a change and go the other way, that's something that you can't do within our current environment with pipelines. So just forewarned, it's a little bit of pain because if you change any of these, the end state is the GUIDs don't match, and you can actually have duplicated your reports or have triple versions of your reports. And then people's links, if they've saved it will stop working, and it becomes a challenge. So just be aware of that.
100%. And this is something that Chris, you and I had talked about even before I came on last week, and realized that I don't think it's currently possible to do both, even within an outside pipeline, even outside of this out of the box process.
Okay, so
we're working on it.
That's where my contention is that no longer should we use data sets that we connect to inside of Power BI. We should be using the URL to the data set, and we should be connecting to that URL as if we are connecting to analysis services. And then it's that URL that we update in our deployment pipelines so that we gain control over what data set that it's connecting to that's being consumed on the front end, or something along those lines, so that we can actually have the control that we need when it comes to managing our reports. Because if you at all work in any size team, you will find yourself rapidly getting to the point where you suddenly have breaking changes that get into test, either on the data set side or on the report side, and you can't do a promotion without having things break, and that can cause all sorts of problems. And having that flexibility to change that, flip things around, can really help you with that migration of your content. For example, let's say you're doing reporting for your finance team and you have a big change going into their financial reporting reports. Well, you're not going to get sign off on your financial reporting reports until that data balances and ties out. Well, if you have, let's say, 150 gig model in production for your finance team, which I know there's lots of people that have that stuff, that means in order for you to get sign off in test, you have to be able to refresh and manage that sync of 150 gigs of data in both of your environments. And that creates all sorts of headaches. Whereas, hey, if you could just simply switch a report that's in UAT to pointing to that production for that sign off, then you could get sign off and that report could get refreshed up. Otherwise, it's a big challenge.
No, and now I'm hearing you in a whole new way, Chris. I totally understand what you're talking about. When you said to me before that we shouldn't be using data sets, I was like, Chris, you have to use a data set. Like I don't think there's a way around it. But now I see what you mean now.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah.
So and for the anonymous LinkedIn user about the URL endpoint, yes, you should be. We want to use the URL endpoint. You cannot parameterize it today. I don't know what the heck Microsoft. We got to sort that out. But you can hack it on the back end on your CICD. And Kevin, this is a warning. Kevin is right. Like the JSON might not be supported in a service request. And to that, I say, Microsoft, you better support because this is broke and it needs to be working. Okay. These are the things we need to have. And
I think Kevin's talking about if you hack the JSON for a visual, right? Or in general, Kevin. Are you thinking in
I
general?
think he's thinking in general because I've run this by him before, and I think he's privy and disagreeing with me on, but like I'm literally I've been through this. I can't tell you how many times with various projects with so many things in flight, and it's like, okay, can we move to production? No.
Right.
Why can't you move to production? Well, if we do, that's going to break these things. Well, okay, well, can we get sign off on these things? No, they can't sign off because this huge model, we can't get it to sync right. And like the testing window opens because we get them all in sync, and then the business partners aren't available. And it can create nightmares. And if we have parameters, then it's so much easier. So all right. I apologize. That's my high horse rant of we shouldn't be using data sets anymore. We should be using the URL. And that URL should be parameterizable. It's not today, but it needs to be in the future. And if they just made it parameterizable, we could solve all of these things.
You know, if the world was cleaner, we wouldn't need soapboxes, right? That's, I think, how it works.
Yes. Yes. If the world was cleaner, we wouldn't need these stupid soapboxes. That's right. Let me get down off my soapbox then. All right.
Okay. You're fine. So while you were chatting, Chris, I went ahead and I made a visual change and I committed it separately. I'm going to make a data model change, which is just adding a measure. So I'm just going to call it test measure, and it's going to equal, isn't this fun? So we can see it. It should be pretty obvious, right? If I come back in here and let me save this. It is something to note. It won't populate until you save it, but once you save it, it's noticed that there's a change in the BIM file. We get this new test measure. Isn't this fun is the expression. And you can see this green means it got added. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stage this commit by hitting this little plus sign. Now that it's staged, I can put a little message in here, and I'm just going to call this data model change, new measure. Obviously, if I was doing something really exciting, maybe put a little bit more description in there, but for what we're doing, that should work. And then I'm going to sync this change up to the cloud. Oh, no, I'll do this one. Okay, there we go. So again, this action is taking my local repository, it's pushing it into my branch on the cloud. So if I minimize all this, we go back to DevOps. We go ahead and go to my branches. You'll remember that I've been coding against CICD demo dev. If you come in here, you can see it's behind 4, or it's ahead 4 on main, because I've just committed 2 more things. Now, something we didn't go over last week is if I click into this branch, I can actually see the history of the commits. So this is where I say commit a lot, commit all the time, because if I need to undo something, I can revert one of these commits without impacting the other one. So what do I mean by that? Let me go through the process real quick. We'll wrap this up. I'll push it into Power BI, the service. I'll push it to test, and then we will undo one of these changes and compare dev and test. So if I go back to our handy dandy development workspace, and again, something that I've loved is that they added it so you can just click on this and it opens it in a new tab. So you end up being able to flip between all of them pretty easily. I now have in my source control a couple of changes that need to be added. So you notice I've got a change for my report and for the data set. So I'm going to go ahead and update all. There we go. Good to go. I go into my report now, the thing I changed was adding a legend here so we can see it pretty easily in the group. I've also turned on personalized visuals to make my life easier. So if I personalize this visual, I can go ahead and maybe just click on this guy and we should see test measure in this list, and we do. So that is going to be the current change. That's what we've got in dev. If I go back to our handy dandy pipeline and I just refresh my browser screen real quick, what's going to happen is now it's going to compare dev and test, and it's going to find some differences. So if I go to Revert Changes, it now will just show me this super helpful value change in the version. That was sarcasm, a little sarcasm sign up. Who cares, right? But it does actually show me that my measure changed. So that is actually useful. I can actually see it in the deployment pipeline, what's changed. If I were to merge this branch in DevOps, I could run it through a pull request and I could also see it there. But what I'm
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You can actually see the differences, what's being deployed, what's not, what's conflicting. Oh, this is awesome. Like,
they did a good job.
Right? Yeah.
Something you might have noticed right away, Chris, because you're a pretty smart guy, is that the report is not here. It's just the data set.
Oh, yeah.
So you can't actually see that at all in here. What I can see is I could see it back in here using the JSON, right? If I click on this commit, it'll show me exactly what's changed in this really handy dandy long JSON string.
Interesting.
Super helpful. Love that. So I personally don't love that at all. But what you can do is if I were to see it inline, it becomes a little bit easier to, and let me just go ahead and go to the actual report JSON. And if I go down to where it's kind of highlighted on the side, it's kind of small, but if you see I've got these green and reds, now it's kind of got a darker green that shows me what's been added. So that helps me at least know that the series got added. If eventually I learn exactly how this all fits in, I could probably find exactly where it is on a page, that kind of thing. But for now, it's a lot easier to go between the two. So if I have it open in test, oh, and you know what I should have done, Chris, is I should have refreshed this while you were chatting.
Opining so.
Yeah.
Opining so.
Yeah.
Well, while you're doing that, while you're refreshing, I do want to take a moment to plug quickly. Next week, so putting this big like caution flags up for next week. I'm gonna be hopefully, fingers crossed, toes, everything crossed. We're gonna be meeting with Ed Hansberry. He's gonna be going over DAX and chess and how he looks at DAX as a strategy. I'm throwing out a flag is on the field. I do have jury duty those 2 days, so apparently I have to call in the night before to see if I actually have to do it. So if I have to go to jury duty, we're going to have to reschedule with Ed to find another day because civic duty is a thing, and I will fulfill my civic obligations. But if fingers crossed, I don't have to go in for jury duty, we will be live next Wednesday. So hopefully that gave your data set enough time to refresh.
Oh, it did. It did. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, as all good things do. Yeah, Kevin. But I just wanted to show you guys you can still see the difference, right? So
that would be
if
amazing for my phone. Like,
can you please though?
They would
question. They may let you go. They might let you go sooner.
Just looking at me.
10 years in prison later. It's like, oh, whoops.
We're in year 4 of the live stream. You know it's going rough.
Yeah, right.
Just keep live streaming throughout the whole thing.
You're like, this is my life now. But it's fine. Worth it for you guys.
Awesome.
I just wanted to show you that you can actually deploy these things later too. So like Chris, you had mentioned that if I've got just the report changes I want to push, I can do that. I can deploy that to test, and just put added legend for sales. If I deploy that, what's going to happen now is when I come in here, I won't need to refresh the data model again, which is awesome. And I get that legend pretty quick. The only thing is you might have noticed that I did not deploy the actual data model. So if I come in here, I won't see my test measure. But if I come back and I do my little compare again, it'll tell me that the actual model is different. So I can deploy that to test. And I can say added test measure and deploy that.
I'll live stream it and you guys all chime in. Are we hanging this guy or what? Pretty sure we don't do hangings in Wisconsin. I can't say I'm super well versed in law. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing.
Oh, hey, Chris, great news. I didn't have to refresh my data model to get the measure.
What?
Look at that. Winning.
Boom.
So I've got my test measure. I know for a fact it does require a refresh if you're adding columns. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing something like that, it will require a refresh, but adding measures, you're good to go. At first I was like, are you breathing really hard? Like, do we need to call somebody? Yes. I saw the crowd. But yeah, it was pretty great. Yeah. So I think that that's a huge win. Because I couldn't figure out why they would require a full refresh, but that's beautiful. So now that we've got that working, sky's the limit. Let's go ahead and undo one of these changes, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Because that's the biggest question I get with Get is, isn't the whole point that we can undo these things? And yes, you're correct. So if I come in here and let's say I delete my visual change, I'm going to go ahead and come in here and revert. So again, I just went into my actual commit, and you remember this commit, the only thing on it is this visual change. There's nothing else in here. This is why you have to commit small if you want to undo small. If you're going to commit big, you have to undo big. So I'm going to go ahead and revert.
Oh, I like that. Commit small so you undo small.
Yes. And this is actually not too bad. So it creates a new branch that's going to merge back into my main one. The reason for this is Get is really big on not losing history. So it's not going to just flat out undo it. It's going to let you know you undid it. So I'll show you guys what that looks like in the tree. I don't mind this branch name because it gives me the revert from and then the old commit name. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Now it's going to do a pull request, and we haven't actually seen a pull request yet, Chris. So this is probably at least a decent visual of what it looks like. But what I can see on here is it says revert visual only changed. And I might put a note in this description, right? Because again, I'm all about documenting what happened. And I'll say, Dr. J did not like the new sales territory legend removing. Now remember, I'm still coding against dev, so I still have to deploy this to test, but this is what dev is for. Dev is for small commits, small changes, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead. This is where I can add a reviewer, so I can add Chris in here and he can see it. I can also add a work item, which you alluded to earlier. If I have a work item on my board, I can put it in here, and this way it all connects. But I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to say create. I'm going to award myself and complete this emergent. But you can add controls around this if you are an admin. you can, yes, Christian, exactly. I was like, what's happening? Don't hurt yourself.
Oh my gosh. Almost passed out there. That was funny. Sorry.
Don't
Whew.
do that. We'll have to call the Wisconsin authorities a little early. Oh. But I'm going to approve this for myself, but this is where you can definitely add controls. So you can say that other people have to approve it. You can say X number of people have to approve it, or so-and-so has to approve it. You can do all that in DevOps. But for our sake, I'm going to go ahead and complete. There are merge types. There are so many of them. They give you a little description.
Can you
Obviously,
zoom in at those? I can't read those very well.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
So there are merge options here. There's merge, just generic, no fast forward. What that means is it's going to give you all of the old commits. Personally, I usually use squash commit because it gives you one line that everything merges to, which I think makes a cleaner line to look at later.
Sure.
So this is what I usually recommend. Never do rebase unless you know what you're doing. So please don't do this. Basically, it doesn't keep that history for you. So I usually typically use do you really, Donald? This feels like scary times. But I usually do squash commit. I'll show you guys what it looks like. They give a helpful little indication of what it can look like if I were to do merge. You can see where it extends out. So feel free to play around with these options, but I typically use squash commit. You can see we get a couple options in here. Complete work items. This is, again, integration with the other parts of DevOps. So, Chris, if you had associated work items that you had put notes in, you could automatically complete them when you do a pull request. Pretty nice. I'm also going to delete the branch. The reason is that branches are really just storage containers for commits. So I don't need to keep this floating in the middle of nowhere. I can just know that my commit is going to be the change and it will be on the main one. So I usually delete the branches. They really are just storage containers. And, it's kind of like, why put old wine in a new wineskin? It's just going to burst. So we'll just delete it. I'm going to go ahead and complete the merge. And when I do that, you can see that it's got it right here for me. So pretty nice. I get some more options, right? I get cherry pick and revert here as well. You'll find that all over DevOps. If you've noticed, DevOps has a couple of things underneath repo. We're currently in the pull request section. If I go back to files, that's where I can find my actual branches and I can flip through what's in there. But there are a lot of options in here for looking up things or navigating DevOps as a whole. Now you'll notice it also tells me what commit I'm on in the last commit message. So I can see that I merged that pull request and I reverted that visual change only. So kind of cool. It tells me what last happened, tells me what's going on. If I flip back to Power BI and I go back to my workspace, we should have some new source control we got to pull in. So again, I'll just zoom in on this, but it's picked up that we have a couple of changes now. It does not know what those changes are, and it cannot tell me right here. So this is, again, where it's like, oh, there's some gaps, but you can still find stuff. So if I update these, there it goes. Yeah, right. Like, need some Jeopardy theme. But you'll notice that my thing has gone away. My handy dandy little legend has gone and gone back.
This is so awesome.
So I just wanted to show you guys that's what it looks like. How it looks like in my local branch, right? Because technically my local branch, if I were to open this back up and continue coding, right now my current PBIP file still has this legend. Right. And I need to get rid of that because that no longer matches what's going on. So, because we reverted a change. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and sync again. So you see it's already picked up. If I zoom in, a little easier to see. Oh, it's not zooming. But sync changes right now has a 1 and a down arrow. So that means that there's a change in the service that's not in my local copy. So I need to pull from the service down to my local copy.
I
So
gotcha.
if I do that and I go ahead and hit OK, what's going to happen now is if I come in here again, and what I might need to do is close this and reopen it. So this part does not work as seamlessly as I had hoped. If I go into our file explorer, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll close it and reopen it.
This is fantastic.
This is the kind of stuff that makes it possible to work across teams, right?
Yeah. Yep. With multiple teams and many people in it. And oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah. So this is what I really wanted to get to today. So I'm glad we had some time to do that because this was the big one.
The big show, the big to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because without this, I mean, it's kind of like a glorified version control system or like a glorified, oh, see, beautiful. It's gone now. So as long as I have my developers closing their PBIP files, they'll know they're always working with the latest on that branch. So pretty handy dandy.
This is fantastic. And as you said, you know, this is more than just for teams, but it can be for helping people like do rollbacks, right? If you have an issue or changes, and you know while you commit small, roll back small. This that also means you can like go back in time and find those changes and just make that change, right? So
Yes.
imagine the world where you had deployed that one change, which was you had added in the index or the what the heck is it? Whatever. You
Oh, the
added
legend?
the
Yeah.
legend. Yes, you added in the legend. 50 changes later,
Yeah.
people say, "Hey, I don't like that engine legend. Why did you add that in?" Right? You could just roll back that one commit and then it's out and you don't have to refactor or redo or like go back to that version of the P by X and then try to like go back through all the stuff or any of that stuff. You could just pull out that one change. And while the legend is small, it could be something really complex that is a small thing that, you know, trying to recreate or redo would be a horrible pain, right?
Yeah. Well, and the biggest one I've seen that I've already used it for is changing DAX functions. So
Oh,
if I have to change something to an old version that they said wasn't working, but then they were like, you know what, actually those numbers do match this new accounting port that came out, it's helpful to not have to remember what the DAX used to be.
yeah. Yep. Yeah. And to be able to see that and go back and, oh, yeah. I mean, everyone, I mean, this is just a fantastic demo, Kristyna. This is really, I mean, Christian saying this is going to have to be a bookmark thing. And I'm excited because I have a feeling this could be the most watched videos that I have. So
Oh, I'm so excited. I mean, I'll let you know if I can find ways to do what you're talking about with that
okay,
changing. Yeah,
that's
I have to
that's
get
what
married first, but the plan is to dig into that right after, you know.
get married, go do the stuff with the hubby. Where is the wedding? When is the wedding?
October
October. Do you
21st.
have a registry we could share with people that we can?
Oh, that's so sweet. I do have a registry.
All right.
Yeah, so I can put that in there in the chat. Let me see.
All right. Well, for everyone out there, like Kristyna is like the most sweetest individual. She's getting married in October. This is just a wonderful time, and really excited for her. You know, like and all of the effort that she's put into this. I know I'm going to be reverting back to this on I don't know if it's a regular basis, but on a semi-regular basis. And I'm going to be pointing someone literally as soon as we end this live stream. I'm going to be sending this over to some people who just asked me questions about some of the topics we covered today. So I'll be sending that out.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I am happy to talk about this stuff at nauseum. I love it. And it's definitely something I'm learning too. So let me put that.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're excited to have everyone
But yes, Kevin.
join us. Yeah, let's not revert back right after like this is a final push and rebase, right?
Refer back.
Refer back.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, we are over our time. I know I've got to explain why I'm late to a meeting. So, but it has 100% been worthwhile to see all this stuff. So, thank you so much, Kristyna, for doing such a wonderful job at this, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in either on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Apologies to LinkedIn people. Messages don't come through super great from LinkedIn. Don't know why. If you want better messages, head over to YouTube. We're there as well. So thank you so much, Kristyna. Any parting words before we go?
No, I think this has been awesome. So thanks for having me twice, Chris. I mean,
Oh,
twice the fun.
yeah,
So
100%. Literally anytime you want to come back, you just let us know when you're ready. Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
Then my last tip for people out there. Well, okay, I got two more tips. Number one, join Kevin and me 7:30 a.m.s on Fridays for Fabric Fridays. We're going to be going deep into Fabric. Got some great topics this week. I can't wait to share it with you. And then a fun one for you. Go over to the Y Files on YouTube. It is one of the most entertaining channels I've ever seen. Better than any show on TV right now. The Y Files discusses like aliens or like conspiracies and stuff like that. And it's fascinating. He tells a wonderful story, and then he goes at the end. He goes, "But is it true?" And then he like reveals the parts of the story that isn't true and the parts that still potentially are. And it's fantastic. The Wi-Fi House is great. Do check it out.
Good to know.
All right. And with that, you guys have a great day. Peace. Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.